Sour, a Miraculous Ladybug Fanfiction written and narrated by me, Estefania, art for the thumbnail image available at my social media linked in the description box below. Go check it out, give me a follow, a like, really appreciate it. While you're at it, make sure to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, a comment, all of that really supports me. Please enjoy Sour, Chapter 1. Marinette currently found herself heartbroken, lying on her bed, crying her eyes out, all because the boy she had loved for so long and finally had the courage 5 months ago to tell him how she felt, how one identity reveal gave her that courage and strength. Instead, he felt the same for her, has shown it ever since they first met, asked her to be his girlfriend, to which she euphorically said yes to, had just broken up with her and had given her no explanation. The months before her and Adrien started dating had been extremely hard on her. All her new responsibilities as guardian and shadow mouth sending out akumas as frequent as 2 or 3 per day sometimes. But everything was slowly getting better once she told Cat Noir, who turned out to be Adrien, her identity. He had become such a huge support for her. He was a pillar keeping her steady, keeping her from breaking down. But when he broke up with her, it felt like that pillar was just mashed in one complete piece and removed from being her support, and she just came crumbling down. Everything felt like it was crumbling around her. The Kwamis tried comforting Marinette, tried to get her to at least not cry as much, for her to learn she was worth and capable of so much more, but to no use. All Marinette could do was reminisce about everything she went through with Adrien, all the time they spent together, and how he just left her. More tears came flooding her blue eyes, and she just couldn't stop them. Everything was too much for her right now, and she had no idea how to express everything she felt. An hour before, Adrien had been called to his father's office, and he gave him the most devastating news. His heart just shattered on the spot. He told him to break up with Marinette, and on top of that, date Kagami. He didn't even feel the moment when the tears that were currently running down his cheek formed, but they were there, steadily, fluidly running down his cheek to his chin, right in front of his father, who seemed unaffected by his emotions. Why would you make me do this, father? Adrien's voice was shaky, and a few sobs came out when he spoke. Well, I don't think Miss Dupancheng is right for you, and a relationship with Miss Saruri could really increase our sales of the Aggress brand. You can't do this, father. If you don't agree to this, Adrien, I will not hesitate to pull you out of college. Cut all sorts of contact with your classmates, and you'll solely dedicate your time to the Aggress brand. And no one must find out I ask you to do this. It must look like you fell in love with Miss Haruki and started dating out of love. Adrien couldn't take it anymore, so he ran out of his father's office to his room. Once he went up the staircase and through the door of his bedroom, he curled up in a ball in his bed, bawling his eyes out. No matter how hard he tried, the flow of tears didn't seem to decrease. The weeping blonde didn't know what to do. He didn't want to disobey his father, but at what cost? He had to break up with Marinette without giving her an explanation. He had to break up with the girl he loved most in the whole world, his lady, the lady of his dreams. He tried thinking of an alternative. Maybe we could date as Ladybug and Cat Noir. No, that wouldn't be fair. Father said I also had to date Kagami. Black, what should I do? I don't know, kid. Your father left you in a tight spot. The blonde could only do so much as groan in between sniffles. He didn't want to hurt Marinette. That was the last thing he wanted. But I felt like in any way both of them would somehow end up hurt. Why does father do this to me? Why can't I just live my life? Adrien was currently studying a major in psychology at the American University of Paris, completely against his father's desires, but he had managed to convince him to let him study there. He thought of living on his own and paying for school in an apartment by himself, so his father couldn't control him anymore. But there was no way he could afford it currently. But he was left, yet again, with only the choice of following his father's demands. 2 minutes later, Gabriel came in through Adrien's bedroom door. Have you fulfilled my request, son? Not yet. I expect it to be done today. Goodbye. That was one of the first conversations Adrien had shared with his father in days, and was just to request him to do something that would completely break his and his lady's heart. But he had no choice, so he went through with it and told Marinette to meet him at the park. 15 minutes later, Adrien was sitting on a park bench, slightly hyperventilating, waiting for Marinette to arrive and thinking of just how everything would go down. The last 5 months, Adrien had been the happiest he had been in a while. It had been amazing dating Marinette, and somehow his father had managed to take that away as well. He was brought out of his thoughts by the sight of Marinette just a few meters away walking toward him. "Hi, Adrien." "Hi, Marinette." His voice had a sad tone to it, not enough that any other person could notice, but it was Marinette. Ladybug. They had been friends and partners for years. She knew him better than anyone, so it was a given fact that she would see right through him, that something was wrong. Adrien already hated the idea of having to break up with Marinette and date Kagami. Not that he didn't like Kagami, but he only saw her as a friend. But what made it worse was that he couldn't tell Marinette he was breaking up with her because of his father, that he didn't want this, that he was being forced into it. But he couldn't say anything of the sort. He had to follow his father's rules exactly as he said, to not risk having any more negative consequences, to not make this even worse. "What's wrong, Adrien?" I think we should break up." He did it. He said it. He started feeling sick to his stomach. All he wanted to do right now was start to cry and tell her he didn't actually want to break up with her, but that his father was making him do so, but he couldn't do that, as much as he desired to. "What?" He could already see her eyes slightly glossy, and seeing his lady was about to cry, and all because of him. This was eating him inside. "I'm sorry, Marinette, but I think it's for the best." "You know what? If you actually think it's for the best for us to break up, even after all we've been through, maybe we should have never dated in the first place." Her eyes were watery, tears were threatening to escape her eyes, but she wouldn't let them. "Goodbye, Adrien." Her tone was hurt, mad, and with those last words, she stood up from the bench they were both sitting on, and Adrien saw her leave to her house just down the street. Adrien absolutely despised this feeling, the feeling of a part of him being torn away without his authorization. He couldn't hold the tears in any longer, so he just let them flow while he walked to his house. The house that didn't feel like a home, unlike Marinette's, which did even before they were dating. Thank you so much for listening. Chapter 2 will be out shortly. In the meantime, you can go check out my art account. I have a lot more posted on there and on my other social media. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed.